Welcome to the Sports Spectrum Podcast, where faith and sports collide. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This is episode number 14 of the Sports Spectrum Podcast. My name is Jason Romano, and we are grateful and thankful to have you joining us here on the program today. As always, go to iTunes and leave a review if you like what you've heard here on the Sports Spectrum Podcast. Our last episode was with John Gordon, the best-selling author and world-renowned speaker, as I call him. He's awesome. He has a great story, not just a great story of reconciliation and a great story of God kind of grabbing a hold of his heart, but really his story of how he's connected into the sports world with the different coaches and different athletes and people that he works with is really remarkable. And John's books are fantastic. They're some of the best books I've ever read and some of the simplest messages you will ever hear. John says he writes a book every year in 3.5 weeks. That's just insane to me. So if you missed episode number 13 with John Gordon, do go back and listen to that. I think you guys will really enjoy that. As always, all of our podcasts are archived on sportspectrum.com. There's a simple tab right on there that says podcast. Just click it and you get to see all of our podcasts. We also have a show note that we publish every Friday and every Tuesday when the podcast comes out. So you can click on those as well at sportspectrum.com. And lastly, we have a daily devotional every single day on sportspectrum.com at 6 a.m. A daily devotional is published. It's a quick, simple, maybe 2 to 3 minute read, not even, maybe like a minute read that allows you to connect with God and begin your day on the right foot, because this is really important, I think, for people of faith to start their day with the Lord. And so we're helping you with that with a daily devotional first thing in the morning every day on sportspectrum.com. All right, today's guest, St. Louis Cardinals pitcher Adam Wainwright. Adam has been in the major leagues for 13 seasons. He was drafted in the first round of the 2000 draft by the Atlanta Braves, and then he was traded, because Atlanta was his favorite team, by the way, but then he was traded from his favorite team in 2003 when he was a minor leaguer to the St. Louis Cardinals. That was part of the J.D. Drew trade. If you're a big baseball fan, you might remember his name. Adam made his debut September 11th, 2005 against my team, the New York Mets. And then in 2006, as a full-blown rookie, beats my New York Mets and wins the World Series. It's taken 11 years for me to be able to say that and not shed a tear. But our guest today, episode number 13, I think you're going to really like this one, with St. Louis Cardinals pitcher Adam Wainwright. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Adam, it's great to have you here with us today. And I got to start with this. So it's been 11 years since you threw a curveball on an 0-2 pitch to Carlos Beltran, and he was frozen. And my New York Mets, who were the best team in the National League that year record-wise, lost to your St. Louis Cardinals. And you go on to the World Series and you do the same thing, and you beat the Detroit Tigers and you win the World Series in 2006, a year I thought my New York Mets should have won it. I just got to ask you, how often do you hear about that pitch, that curveball that you threw to Beltran, from Mets fans or even just baseball fans?
Certainly every time I go to New York. But inevitably throughout the season, no matter where I go, somebody's a Met fan, and they'll walk up and through conversation, they'll go, "Oh man, I have to admit, like, I really hate you. Like, you broke my heart, man." And I was like, "Yeah, I hear you, man. I apologize." But when I would go into Shea after that, or now when I go into Citi Field,
yeah, the
entire crowd boos me. I mean, it is hilarious. I love, when I was there for the All-Star game, and what was that, 2013 maybe? It was so fun, because when they were doing the introductions, it was like I got the loudest boo out of everyone, which usually when you get booed in visiting parks, that means you've whooped them a few times. So that's a compliment.
Well, it's also complete jealousy, because 06 was supposed to be the Mets' year and you guys won the World Series. So you just kind of like, all right, you have what we as Mets fans wish we had. So that was still one of the best pitches I've ever seen in the postseason. Just a beautiful pitch, but life moves on, right? We move on.
That Met team was tough, man. I'll tell you what.
It's a good team, right? It might have been one of the best Mets teams around.
Really good Mets team. And I think obviously the Tigers are a tough team, but you with the talent the Mets had, the lineup they had, I would have liked their chances going forward too. So we were
Yeah,
fortunate to get.
they had some great hitters. Their offense was ridiculous. We're talking to Adam Wainwright here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Now, Adam, at the end of April, you're hitting 400. You're often asked about pitching and the art of pitching and all this. And on April 21st against Washington, you strike out 9 batters, and we'll get to why every strikeout this year from you is so important in a minute with big league impact. But you also hit a home run. You drove in 4 runs. As a pitcher, do you relish days like that where you can not only bring it on the mound but at the plate too and just rake?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that kind of takes me back to my little league days, where you're kind of, when your pitcher was the best player and he was the best hitter and he hit all the runs in. And when I get a hit and I score a run or I get a bunt down, even I do something offensively to help and maybe make a defensive play here or there, it makes me feel like a total baseball player. Sometimes in the game of baseball, pitchers are sort of labeled as non-athletes. And
Right.
so I always like to remind our position players that the pitchers are the best athletes on the field. And that's true sometimes and also not true sometimes. So, I mean, some of these pitchers in the big leagues got DH'd for in high school and stuff, and there's just no excuse for that. But the thing that drives our hitters so crazy is every time we'll get a hit or something, I'll go, yep, best athletes on the field, boys.
I bet you don't hold back on that one. Now, why haven't we had a home run hitting contest with pitchers yet? Why hasn't that happened with Bumgarner and Arrieta, Kershaw? Why haven't these guys had a home run hitting contest yet?
I think people would tune in and watch it, but I think more than anything, probably the teams are against it more than even Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball probably wants to see that, and the teams are going, no. Clayton Kershaw is not going to go out there and swing 50 times as hard as he can and try to hit home runs. But in our defense, if they come watch our batting practice every day that we hit on the field, that's pretty much what we try to do. So we're conditioned for it.
Is that your approach to the plate every time you come to the bat? Just try hit a home run? When you're not bunting, obviously.
Even when I'm not thinking that in the back of my mind, and this has been my struggle my whole life, I'll think like, just stay hard at the middle. And right before the pitcher throws it, I sort of get this daydream in my head of a ball going out of left center like 450. So it plays in today's game though, because guys are now trying to get the ball in the air. They're trying to get, trying to lift and keep the ball off the ground which a lot of people's minds, that makes a lot of sense, because as pitchers, we're trying to get the ball on the ground. We're trying to get that hitter to hit on the ground. So if a hitter's trying to do what the pitcher wants to do, then plays right into our hand. But usually when I come up to the bat, I'm trying to hit a ball really hard somewhere, wherever that is.
So the first time you come to the plate ever in your major league career, it's May 24th, 2006, 11 years ago. And the very first pitch you ever see, you hit a home run. Where does that rank on your list of baseball achievements? You got All-Star games and Gold Gloves and World Series.
It's up there. Yeah, it's up there. I mean, the funny thing about that is we had a bullpen day, which means that the starter was out that day. And so I was in the bullpen at the time, and there was a scheduled slate, like a slotted amount of pitches that each bullpen guy was supposed to throw to be able to cover that game. And I pitched second. Brad Thompson started the game. I came in and pitched second. And when I was pitched the inning before, and then Tony La Russa came over and said, "All right, good job. You're out of the game." I said, "Okay, thanks." And about 30 seconds later, he came over and says, No. I need you to go out there and pitch 1 or 2 more. And so I went from thinking I'm out of the game to, oh man, I'm up to bat. And like literally, I didn't even get any practice swings. So I threw my helmet on real quick, grabbed my batting gloves and the bat, and I ran up to the box, and I didn't even practice swing, and I hit a home run. And I think probably the reason that I hit a home run is because I didn't have time to think about it or go through like, all right, what's my approach here? What am I trying to do? It was just a spur of the reaction thing. And I'm sure that pitcher at the time, Noah Lowry, he was probably like, all right, this guy's just a reliever. He's not going to swing. Just going to get strike one real quick. And so it worked out great for me. That was a great moment for me.
Do you still have the ball?
I do, yeah. The great thing about hitting home runs and visiting parks is sometimes they throw the ball back,
That's
and
true.
so that's what happened. I hit it in the stands, and one of the San Francisco Giant fans threw it all the way back into the infield, so I got it back.
That's how great is that? We're talking to Adam Wainwright here. He is joining us on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Now, Sports Spectrum being the intersection of sports and faith, Adam, you've never been shy about your faith. You're very outspoken as a believer in Jesus. I want to go back a little bit to the time when you decided to make Christ your Savior and make that faith in God your own. Take us back to that moment.
Well, it was in 2002. I grew up, as a lot of people did, going to church a lot, especially in the South. I'm from the Southeast, and growing up, I went to church a lot. Every Sunday I was there. I went to youth group, and I went to vacation Bible school. But you know what? I never made it my own. I never really let God and Jesus, I never let the Holy Spirit really fill me, and I never was ready to hear the word for whatever reason. When I got into pro ball, I really started to have some doubts on whether there was just one God, or whether every other religion out there, whether it be Islam or whatever, they were all calling the same dude God, right? So I didn't know, and so I just had big reservations, and actually went on a hunting trip with a friend of mine named Blaine Boyer and a couple other friends, and we were sitting around a campfire one night, and they said, well, you need to read your Bible more. And somebody did, and I said, well, why do I need to read the Bible more? I know a good bit about the Bible. I could tell you most of the stories in there. And they said, well, because that will get you closer to God. And I said, well, how do I know I don't need to read the Quran more? And they said, well, because we just don't think that he's the God. And I said, well, I know, but I don't know if he is or not either, but I'm just not in a place where I know that Jesus is my Savior. I wasn't ready to commit to myself to that. And so Blaine said, well, hey, here's the deal. There's this great conference called Professional Athletes Outreach, PAO. And my agent had just told me about the same conference. And I think everybody knew, that I was kind of searching. And so they said, you should go to this conference and just kind of hear. There's some great teachers there. You should just kind of hear what they have to say. And I said, you know what, I'll think about it. But, I've been to church so many times, man. I've been to, Bible studies and youth groups and FCA huddles and all these things, but nothing's ever really sunk in. So maybe it's just not for me. And so eventually I decided to go, just to sort of prove everyone wrong, like get it off my chest that, you know what, I tried and it didn't work for me. And so I did that in 2002. The conference was in Dallas, Texas. And I went there, and Blaine and I were roommates, and get to PAO, and I told him the deal. I said, man, I'm here because y'all wanted me to be here, but I really don't want to be here, but I'm going to listen. I'm going to try, and we'll just see what happens. And man, I just know that God had me there for a reason, and I was meant to be at that conference. I was meant to hear Joe Stoll preach out of the book of John. I was meant, everything up to my life led to that conference. I was there for a reason. There's no question about it. And during the night sermon, Joe Stoll was preaching on the relationship that is meant to be with Christianity and with Jesus. And for whatever reason, God finally opened my ears, and I fully bought in on the spot. And I even so much so that when I was listening to him talk, even though it was something that I'm sure that had been preached to me times over, it sunk in and it punched me right in the face. And it punched me so hard that I looked around to make sure that I wasn't actually talking to Jesus himself. And it was Joe up there, but I believe the Spirit had filled him that day to deliver that message to me. And so many times I hear, man, I felt like that message was meant just for me right there. I felt like it was directed just to me. And I think that's the great thing about the gospel, is that, you know what, it is just for you, and it is just for me. And that day, when I was listening, I became whole.
Wow. 15 years later now, as you have been walking with the Lord, how do you stay active and grounded in your faith? You know, baseball seasons are so long and grueling. You know, you're traveling, you're in hotel rooms, but how do you stay active and grounded in your faith during the season? Off season, obviously a little different, but during the season.
Yeah. So I have accountability partners left and right, and a couple of friends of mine will keep in contact. And hey, how's your walk going? Are you struggling anywhere? And we'll keep tabs like that. I do a daily devotional reading plan with my financial advisor Don Christensen and several of my old teammates. And also, right now, what we're doing in our Bible studies during the season, we have Bible study in chapels also, but is something we did a couple years ago with a couple of my teammates. Now we would have a verse of the week, and so on Sunday at chapel we'd get a verse, and all week we'd work on it, and then the next chapel we had to recite it.
Hmm.
And the cool thing about that was, you'd be out there during batting practice or playing catch on the line, and you walk by, and my buddy Blake Hawksworth at the time was one of the guys doing it with me, and I'd say, Blake, all right, John 16:33, go. And he'd go, and he'd either have it or he'd go, man, I need to work on it again. And so that's what we're doing now too. We're doing that verse of the week, and it's just a constant reminder that I need accountability. I need partners in this thing with me, and I need homework, because it's really easy in what we do to get caught up in the game of baseball, all the preparation that goes into it, and then you get home late, and so you don't want to, dive into the Bible late at night. I end up falling asleep, and so then you sleep in, and then you order breakfast, and then you're like, well, I could do my study now, but I really need to kind of get to the field because I got this preparation. And so everything becomes around baseball, and baseball becomes an idol. And so it's just a constant reminder to me that, what, baseball, unless I stop it, will become an idol. And the Lord will take a back seat unless I'm intentional about pursuing him.
Well, one thing you're intentional about is not just talking the talk as a believer, but walking the walk. And the evidence of that is being felt all over the world with big league impact. When was that moment, Adam, when your heart sort of broke for those less fortunate, if you will, and you were called with your brother Trey to begin big league impact, to begin this ministry?
So my wife and I looked for years and years. We were partners in a lot of different things, FCA, living water, and cancer balls, and Pujols foundations, and all these other kind of things. We were searching for what we wanted to be our niche, like, what is it that's calling to us? What is it that we feel led to support? And all those things are great. We loved all our time doing all these other different charity events. But nothing we were doing at the time, we'd go home and be like, man, that was so cool. Today we did this. There was nothing that was really like pulling at our heartstrings. It was like, man, I'm so glad somebody's supporting that. I really don't feel led to do that. And we went as far as prison ministries and everything. We couldn't figure out what our niche was going to be. And then one day we supported a group called Water Mission, and Water Mission was doing clean water projects, but they were also delivering the gospel. And what I loved about it was that it was a self-sustainable system too, and they were teaching people in the communities to use the systems, was providing jobs. And then it was a system that it operated off of already existing wells or rivers or lakes or whatever it is. So they take that water and they clean it and they give it to the people. And the first project we did, they came back and they said, dude, you're not going to believe this. This is powerful stuff, man. Like 90% of the waterborne bacteria in that region is gone now. Like, from the projects you just did. And I was like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah. I was like, man. And my wife was like, whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And so, we started supporting some other ministries that did food, some other things that did shelter. And Jenny and I, my wife and I, just looked at each other like, man, there's people out there right now that are starving to death. there's people out there right now that don't have a clean water to drink, a clean drop of water to drink. They're drinking like what looks like chocolate milk water out of their rivers, and they're cleaning in them. Their animals are cleaning in them. Like this right here, like today, when we go home, we have the ability to save lives today with what we're doing. And it just hit home so much. And so through that process, when I was out there shagging in the outfield as starting pitchers or pitchers in the big leagues, you spend a lot of time shagging batting practice. It's just the way the game is. Just other guys got hit and somebody's got to catch them and throw them in. So that's what we did. So I'm out there all the time, and I'm always running ideas through my head of the next charity initiative, like what can I do? And so I ran a charity golf tournament for years, and I just kind of got burned out on the golf thing. Everybody did golf thing. And so I'm sitting out there one day with Skip Schumacher, my old teammate, and I said, Skip, we spend all this time out here every day talking about fantasy football, like who we're trading, who we're drafting, what's our strategy, who we're going to rip off of here, and this guy's on the waiver wire, and I'm going to pick him up first. It's like, has anyone ever done a fantasy football charity event? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, dude, I just think it would be really neat if we could do a fantasy football charity event. And Troy Gloss was on the team at the time, and Troy walked over and was like, what are you doing? I was like, man, I'm telling you, one day I'm going to do a fantasy football charity event. And he's like, okay. And he kind of walked off. And for the next 2 years, I stewed on it, and I couldn't get it out of my brain. And my brother's a lawyer, and I said, Trey, dude, I'm still thinking about this fantasy football idea. I think it's a great idea. And he goes, I agree. And he goes, and I'm ready to take a step back from this law practice that I've got going. It's burning me out. I'll take a year off, and let's do this thing together. And so he took a year off from his law job and took a salary that is below a nonprofit salary. I mean, like super low
Right.
to help me put this idea to work, because I'm a dreamer, but I don't really know how to get anything done, basically. And so he's the other side of the coin. And so we worked great together. So we started talking with the Players Association, with Major League Baseball, and everybody thought it was a good idea, and they had some things to offer, but nobody really wanted to be a part. And he said, you know what, let's just do this ourselves. We'll do it. And we went to the St. Louis Cardinals. We said, hey, we got this idea, Big League Impact. We're going to call it Big League Impact. And we want to do fantasy football. We want fans to come play with us, and all the money we're going to give away. We're not going to keep 1 cent of it. We're going to put 50% back into the community here in St. Louis. We're going to put 50% to work overseas, and we're going to do water projects overseas, and we're going to feed people in St. Louis. And the Cardinals have been absolutely amazing to us. And so over the last 5 years, man, we've grown. We're in like 10 or 11 cities now across Major League Baseball. And my goal is to do this in 30 cities. I want to have a Big League Impact. Houston, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Chicago, New York City, like all these places. If we had 30 Big League Impact represented teams, we could change the world. I really believe that. And so that's the goal, man. We're just going to keep going.
I love it. It's bigleagueimpact.org, bigleagueimpact.org. And I mentioned earlier about the strikeouts. Every strikeout that you've had this season, 2017, has meant a little more than other years. Explain the reason why and how people can partner with Big League Impact and connected with your on-field performance.
Yeah, so we partnered with Pledge It and a group called Feed the Hungry. And so every time I strike someone out this year, people have the opportunity to join in with me in this initiative. And if you donate $1 or 10 cents or 50 cents or $5 per strikeout, all that money is going to go to Feed the Hungry, and we're going to feed people that they don't have any food. That's, I mean, plain and simple, they're starving, and we have the chance to feed them through the game of baseball, through striking out people. And we've partnered with Liam Hendricks from the A's and a couple other people, and the goal is to get at least $250,000 this year, and I'm going to match it up to $250,000. So if we could bring $500,000 to the table to feed people, you know how many people you can feed with $500,000? It's a lot.
Yeah, that's an easy way too. All you have to do is go to bigleagueimpact.org. You can pledge it, like he said, pledge 50 cents, $1 per strikeout, and all that money is going to feed people who don't have food. So this is a great way to be involved. BigLeagueImpact.org. And Adam, as we close, being a big league pitcher for so many years, 3 World Series, I guess this is back to on the field a little bit, 2 championships. You've accomplished so much in your career. I'm just curious, I guess, personally, how much longer do you want to pitch? You're 35, 36 years old. How much longer do you want to pitch?
35, Jason, 35.
All right. Not 36 yet.
You know what? I am going to listen to my body on that, and I'm going to listen to the hitters. And my body feels good, and I'm still getting hitters out, then I'll pitch for a few more years. I got this year and next year under contract for sure. And then at the end of next year, I'm going to sit down with Jenny and my family, and we're going to look at this. And if guys are teeing off and hitting doubles and homers off me left and right, then you know what? I've had a great career. I don't really choose to be mediocre. I want to be great at something else. You know, I'll go home and be the best dad and the best husband and the best farmer that I can be and help feed people at home. In the meantime, I expect to be great at this game. And if I'm still pretty darn good at this game and I'm still able to, in our job, put it bluntly, we make a lot of money. And the more money that I make, the more money I can give away. And the more money that can impact the kingdom. And so I have a responsibility in God's eyes. I'm pretty sure that he says, hey, man, I gave you these talents. I want you to use them so that you can help the kingdom. And if that is going to be true for the next few years, man, I have no problem with going out there and playing for the Lord to have an impact on his kingdom.
I love it. Well, last question, Adam, and we ask this to all of our guests on the Sports Spectrum podcast. What is the Lord? What is God teaching you right now?
You know what? I would. The word that came to mind instantly was perseverance. And I battled through a couple of tough injuries the last year. I was coming back from a torn Achilles, and the results of my pitching were not where I wanted it to be. And I started off pretty bad this year, kind of the same kind of feeling thing and going on. And I started to cry out to him like David would and go, man, am I not a loyal servant to you? Am I not doing your work right now? Can you make me get some outs, basically? And you know what? I've been pitching better, but the mindset for me and the message that holds very true and clear to me right now is Adam, all these things, it's James 1 verse 2 all over again. You know what? When you're facing trials like this of many kinds, you know what? You have to stay strong, persevere. I will bring you through this. That's what he's telling me right now. I will bring you through this, and you'll be a better man, a better teammate, a better father, and this kingdom will be a better place with you in it for sticking with me, being diligent, and being able to persevere through trials, because I've certainly felt like I've faced some trials over the last few years, but I also know that there's no quit in this dog. I'm gonna keep fighting.
I love it. The website is BigLeagueImpact.org. You can partner with Adam, and let's do our part to help end poverty, to feed people clean water. There's so many ways to get involved. Check it out, BigLeagueImpact.org. You can find Adam on Twitter at Uncle Charlie 50. Uncle Charlie 50. I think it's one of the coolest Twitter handles out there. Adam Wainwright, thank you so much for being a part of the Sports Spectrum podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Adam Wainwright. He is as grounded a player and as down to earth as a person that I've come across in the major leagues from a superstar standpoint. This guy's been a legit superstar pitcher in the major leagues for the last 10 years, 13 years. He's 3-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glover, 2-time World Series champion. But his heart for people, his heart to help others, his heart to do something for the least of these, like the Bible says, his heart for giving back. I love that. And I love that he wants to pitch 2 more years, specifically so he can make enough money, specifically so he can give it back to help others. That's what it's about. And Adam Wainwright has his priorities on straight, and I'm a big fan of his. And even though I'm a New York Mets fan, I will be cheering on Adam Wainwright for the rest of this season and as long as he's pitching in his major league career. Again, go to sportspectrum.com, leave us a review on iTunes, check out the podcast, check out the daily devotional. We are so thankful again that you joined us here. We hope you have a great day, and we will see you next time on the Sports Spectrum Podcast.